One of the basic necessities of life is housing. In a country like Nigeria, with an estimated population of over 180 million people, the need for government to ensure that the people have good housing is not only necessary but critical. However, this has not been the case. For decades and after successive administrations in Nigeria, a truly national housing program that seeks to provide affordable housing for the average Nigerian has happened only twice, between 1979 and 1983, when Shehu Shagari was President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the present administration under President Muhammadu Buhari. With improved funding and a clear mandate to provide affordable housing for the people of Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing, with Babatunde Fashola SAN as Minister and his Ministers of State, Surveyor Usman Hassan Zama and Mustafa Babashehuri, set out to understand the peculiarities of the housing sector in Nigeria and how best to approach this mandate. Today, Nigeria has a truly national housing program that is delivering housing that is not only affordable but acceptable.
There is the temptation to mix policy with program, and I think that there are two different things. Affordable housing is a global policy which almost every nation has subscribed to. How do you deliver that? Those are matters of programs and actions. So do you want to build X housing unit? What type of housing unit? And so on and so forth. Now, what the Buhari administration has embarked upon is a national housing program. This is the second time that is happening in my own lifetime's experience. This is not to say that other governments have not done housing in interventions, but none on a national scale. And that is what we are implementing now. The other thing that I want to add to that is to say that we have learned a lot from the errors of yesterday, and it is now manifesting in our decision to first run a pilot program based on investigation, research, consultation with some of the would-be end users and off-takers to find out what type of housing they want, what type of income they earn, and how much they are willing to pay. But as we speak about housing, let me also correct another perhaps common assumption that we need to change. That housing must be defined beyond ownership. It must include rental housing. The assumption is that once you talk about housing, everybody must own a home. No economy has delivered 100% home ownership in any part of the world, and I stand to be corrected. It is always a mixture of ownership and rental. The ultimate goal being to increase the number of people who migrate from rental to become owners and reduce the number of people who lose their housing and who are unable to afford ownership. And two models that I've studied extensively, the Singaporean and the UK model, are very good case studies that have guided my thoughts on this matter for the last 1 decade.
The Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing through the housing program is not only building houses that believe is good for the people, but building in almost all the states of the Federation and ensuring that houses built are affordable and acceptable to the people they are meant for. The program is so carried out to ensure that people of the state directly or indirectly benefit financially and in terms of employment from the projects. These projects, though federal government owned, has the involvement of individual state governments, hence making it an all-inclusive venture.
When a nation commits to infrastructure, generally, one of the things it wants to see is improved quality of public utilities, transportation, water supply, shipping, and so on and so forth. But that is the end game. The immediate gain is growth in the economy, employment for some of the most vulnerable people in the society, and a movement of goods and services within the economy. And that is what we are beginning to see already from the housing program we have started in the entire country, where construction is now going on in 33 states. We asked each state to give us land because, as you know, the current land legislative regime vests land in the state governors. As I said earlier, we also wanted to prove a concept that shows that we have learned something from the first national housing program. So one of the things we are subjecting our pilot to is acceptability in the way that it is built. So we asked the governors, give us no more than 10 hectares. Let us use those 10 hectares to build in your state what our research and consultations suggest to us that your people will accept and they can afford. So 33 states gave us land. We are still waiting for 3 states, Bayelsa, Lagos. I think we have land from Rivers now, but there are still challenges about access and so on. So those are 3 states we're still waiting to hear from. But in all those 33 states now, what we found out is that largely in the north, they prefer us to build bungalows. In the south, they are not averse to blocks of flats. But either way, they don't mind whether it's 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or 3 bedroom. That is what they share in common.
The need to have white-collar jobs, get involved in politics, enjoy the conveniences of the urban centers, and the total neglect of the agricultural sector by Nigerians has caused a rural-urban migration, which has stretched facilities in the urban centers and exaggerated the housing deficit in the country. This administration is addressing this problem in a creative and workable manner that is yielding positive results already.
There are people who require houses, okay? But the question is, the pressures we feel in the urban centers, people migrating from rural to urban centers, does not factor in the houses they have left empty or the homes that they have left from where they originated. And so when President Buhari focuses on agriculture, one of the things you will see is a slowdown ultimately in rural-urban migration. That's what we are already seeing. People who used to lease out their land to farmers to farm are now the ones saying, we're not leasing out our land again, we're farming on our land, so they're not moving away again. And you see more of that as the agricultural activity deepens. But that is one index in quantifying what the real deficit is. Then there are houses that are empty, even in urban centers, simply because people cannot afford or people do not accept how they were built, or a combination of both. Either the rental income is too high, or the house is too big, or too small for the need of the person. So in really discussing the deficit, we must factor all of these as well. Then how did we arrive at those figures that we are banding around? Because the basis for computing these kind of things is a credible census. So at the very best is approximated guessworks that you have. So we need to do a new census. We understand that not enough houses exist. We understand that some are too expensive. We understand that some don't like the way they are built. But we are not going to be prisoners of a deficit. We are going to continue to work on a methodical basis. And what we want to do is pilot what we are doing, prove that it works, prove that people like it, prove that people accept it, so that they won't be like the old Shagari housing estate. I have requests now, I think, from Kwara. I have requests from, I think, Taraba, and one other state. People just writing to us to say, look, we want to take over this place, we want to refurbish them. They've been empty.
The Muhammadu Buhari administration has a policy of growing the nation's economy through infrastructural development. With this in mind, the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing is not only building houses, but using the housing program as a strategy for job creation for the most vulnerable population in the country and movement of goods and services. With an average of 1,000 people working in all 33 sites all over the country, and in some cases as much as 1,600 people working, the housing sector is a very effective way of creating employment and encouraging trade in and around the sites nationwide. This means that there is improved financial activity and more money is circulating, which positively affects the country's economy.
This is clearly well thought out strategy by the president and the party, and the government is faithfully implementing these programs. And in all the states where I have been, the housing estates, the purpose of infrastructure, as I said, is already being met in the very first contact, creating employment for the most vulnerable people. I remember one man that I met in, two young men that I met in Taraba, I remember, and in Bauchi, and they said to me, they were bricklayers, masons, and they said to me, please thank President Buhari for us. We didn't have work before this housing project started. We are now employed. I remember the couple that I met in Oyo. The husband was a builder, the wife was a food vendor. They had migrated from Lagos to Oyo. They said the housing programs have slowed down and they saw a new opportunity. So the wife sells food